Good morning, everyone. It is September 8th. We have finally broken this ridiculous heat wave that we had after Labor Day, but it's still not yet pumpkin spice weather yet. I am already talking about winter tulips. So I joked in the beginning of the year that I just incessantly was talking about tulips and it would be a while before I talked about tulips again. And here we are. We are getting ready for winter tulips. So I wanted to do a short video to show you exactly what I'm doing for prepping, including launching my CSA. And if you want to get in on winter tulips, some resources where you could source trays, hydroponic trays that is, and all that good stuff. So yesterday I got a phone call from Eric on my way home from work saying, "What the heck did you order? We have 8 giant boxes." And I was like, "I didn't order anything." And so he reads on the label that it's from b.a.r.e. And I said, "Oh my God, I think they accidentally shipped our hydroponic trays that he was supposed to pick up today." So if you've seen my videos before, you'll have seen this tray. This is a hydroponic tray that is made specifically to force tulips. What you do is you put the bulbs on each of these needle things over here. They sit on top, and what happens is the roots grow on the bottom, enabling them to hit the water without the bulb being saturated. And if the bulb gets saturated over time, it will rot. So this type of tray is crucial for keeping that tulip bulb alive and able to generate that flowering shoot. Now, it's really hard to find these trays, especially if you're outside of the US. So I'm sorry, unless if you live in like Europe or the Netherlands, there is a supplier. I will put a snapshot of a supplier that I was in talks with of potentially trying to source a pallet from them. The trays are pretty cheap. I think they came out to like 4 or 5 euros a piece, but the shipping kills you. So unless if you're in Europe where the freight is gonna be a lot cheaper because they're based out in the Netherlands, that wasn't actually a viable option for me. So enter b.a.r.e. b.a.r.e. sells these trays over here for $10 each. Previously, I was buying them from b.a.r.e. and they were selling them, they are still selling them for about $20 a tray. And last year, those trays were actually used trays. There was just like such a shortage on trays versus demand. So, the people at b.a.r.e. were very frank and they were saying, "Look, we would love to sell you new trays, but it would be super cost prohibitive. So the workaround is we're going to sell used trays." And look, I got the used trays, cleaned them. They were perfectly fine. The issue with those trays was that when they were shipping them, they would get cracked in transit. So then they started putting the trays into a bulb crate. So something like this where tulips traditionally come in. Right now, this is housing my garlic, but they would put 3 trays in one of them. And then they ended up changing their pricing structure. I think it's like $65 now for the 3 trays plus the bulb crate. So it's still a lot more expensive because then you're still paying shipping versus something like this, which is $10 and new. Now, b.a.r.e. is located in North New Jersey in Newton. It's actually about 25 minutes away from our last townhouse. Eric goes up there quite a bit because he's on the HOA board and stuff. So he's going to go pick them up for me. And then I think they accidentally just shipped them. So to give you context, I ordered 30 trays. 30 trays, I'll show you. Those 30 trays came in boxes like this. So 4 boxes with 1 box being a little bit smaller, but the total freight on this, if I had to pay for it, was $184 going from North Jersey to Central Jersey. So because of that, they actually won't even allow you to place an order for trays. You have to call b.a.r.e. And then they will place the order on behalf of you to b.a.r.e. because people don't realize how much it is to ship. So they've now made this more of a manual effort on their end to make sure that people aren't surprised with a $100 shipping fee for just a few trays. So unfortunately, if you've been working with a lot of wholesalers, most of them don't have very good websites for you to just go on and order something. They still kind of operate in the 90s, right? Where you're calling someone, you get a catalog. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Just Google b.a.r.e. For me, my rep is actually Dave Dowling. So I emailed him. He got me in touch with the right people, and that's how I got these trays. So let's talk a little bit about these trays and how I can use them. So A tray here can fit anywhere from like 80 to 100 bulbs. Those two factors are dependent on one, the size of the bulb that you're getting. So obviously the bigger the bulb, the fewer bulbs you can cram into a tray. And two, how well you are at at maximizing the space in the tray to make sure you're not having any or a lot of dead space. So on average, 80 to 100. So that means in a given tray, let's just go on the low end, I can grow about 80 tulips. So 80 tulips, if I do a CSA with 10 stem bunches, then I can get 8 shares or 8 bouquets out of a single tray. Now, obviously you want to factor in attrition and all that stuff. So, safely, I would say 5 bouquets per tray at the low end. So then you start adding up all the trays. I have 30 trays, and you don't use all the trays at once. You have to succession plant, right? Because if you use all the trays at once, different varieties are going to bloom at different times. So you might get that staggered succession, but then you're going to have this big gap where then you have to rewash all the trays after everything's done, reroot them, regrow them, and wait for at least, I would say, like 3 to 4 weeks before you get another succession. So in order for me to hit my CSA on a weekly basis, I'll explain the logistics of my CSA in the later part of the video. I need to be using like something like 4 to 5 trays at a given time. So I have 30 over here. I have 4 for a friend, which leaves me with 26. And then I have another like 8 from last year. And I have like 2 more that are broken, which I've kept just in case I need them, but I don't think I will yet. I had started leaving the garage before I realized that this garage is really crucial to me expanding my winter tulips this year. So I will be rooting the tulips somewhere in this area. So on my to-do list is to get some shelving on wheels, and we'll probably take out this table over here. And I estimate I'm only gonna need like 3 shelves like this size that are 3-tiered. And that will be more than plenty for the tulips. I'm also gonna try to do some other non-tulip related stuff, taking advantage of the space. Now, this is a pole barn that we had budgeted in when we bought this house. The house has a 2-car attached garage, but it's not very long, so Eric's pickup truck wouldn't fit in. Eric's very, we'll call it particular about his vehicles and wanting to keep them clean and all that stuff. So certain things that you let go in marriage, and that's one of them, because I am totally not like that. I would let the tractor sit outside for all I cared. But anyway, so it was in the budget for us to do a pole barn. And as I was getting more into the winter tulips, I said to him, let's make this garage bigger, because I would like a space for me to be able to expand the tulip bulb production. And last year we had a lot of rodent pressure in our other garage. So I'm hoping, because this one's new, there's not a lot of spaces and cracks for mice to come out of. So I'm hoping that that will alleviate the rodent pressure. But this garage, more importantly, obviously, one, is a structure. So it's not going to be subjected to like winds and snow. But the other thing is we invested in insulation. So it's pretty decent insulation in here. It was actually a pretty hefty price tag. We were gonna do it, and then I realized that we were never gonna have the time to do it in time for the winter tulips. So we paid for the insulation, and let me tell you, this insulation keeps, you can see the thickness of the wall here, and therefore the insulation. I forget what the R value is. I'll have to find out and put it on this video, but it holds it well, because even nowadays we're having swings between daytime and nighttime temps, and this place is keeping that warm temperature. So that's really, really good news. And last but not least, here we have a chest freezer, which if I open it right now is full of food, including my tomatoes that I need to turn into tomato sauce. But this is going to be converted into a refrigerator. And when I say converted, I literally just pushed the dial to refrigerator. This is a chest freezer that is a convertible, and it's also rated for outdoor garage use. It's actually meant to be used in a garage and be susceptible to those changes in temperature. So one wild card here is, how does the humidity look? I actually have a Govee in here. And the Govee is less useful when it's freezing from a humidity point of view, but I'm gonna check to see how it looks when it's on refrigeration mode. And I will be holding my tulip bulbs in here. I found that a fridge does a really good job of, one, obviously maintaining a cold temperature, but two, having air circulation as well as humidity control. Now that is true of a normal fridge, so I'm interested to see how this works when I convert it to refrigerator mode, and the Govee will be able to help me troubleshoot. And there's multiple ways that you can fix things. Like if it's too high humidity, you can buy something to basically maintain the humidity inside. So that's gonna be over, I would say, like in about a month and a half for us to figure out. We are now in my basement, which needs to be cleaned up. This is part wood shop for Eric. So we've been doing a lot of house reno ourselves. Eric really utilizes this space this time of year. And then when it's tulip season, obviously he can still use the miter saw and stuff, but this part is usually cleared up for me. It was actually earlier this year, we had a very old furnace and a water heater with a full tank. And I mean, it was on its last legs. So when we upgraded, we invested into a tankless water heater and really invested in an efficient and good system with a smaller footprint, because I knew that if I wanted to expand my tulips, I would have the space to do it over here. So I'm hoping that the tulips will eventually pay for that upgrade piece. But this is what I affectionately call my mouse fortress. We also have rodent pressure down here. So we built this so that the rodents would not go in and eat my tulip bulbs that are growing over here. And you can see I actually still have painter's tape where I was labeling some of the varieties and the dates that I had started them here. But anyway, I got some of those like ultrasound things that are supposed to help deter rodents. So I don't want to build another mouse fortress. I mean, this stuff, even though it looks super basic, still costs money. I mean, I would say that all the wood and this stuff is particularly expensive, this wiring. This is still like over $100. It's probably like $120. So I'm gonna see if I can get away with not using this and just using those ultrasound things and seeing how far we get. I even converted Chance's dog crate into a place where I forced some soil crates. So this needs to also get cleaned out and stuff, but I could always add a couple of hydroponic trays in here. I mean, you can tell I was getting really creative. Like here's some lighting that I put on top with a cardboard piece over here. So I think over time I got a little bit less concerned about the rodent piece. And I had like a piece of cardboard over here so they couldn't get in. And a mouse could clearly get through a place like this, or, you know, the gap like this. And they didn't end up doing it, at least not in February, March. So I'm gonna take my chances, and if it doesn't work out, then I will make another mouse fortress. I have also noticed that even though a mouse might eat a part of a bulb, depending on how much they eat and where they eat, sometimes the bulb can still be completely fine. But they do have a habit of pooping wherever they eat. So it's just not something you want to have as a whole. It's just kind of gross. This is another fridge that we've had where it held my tulip bulbs before. It unfortunately broke. Eric tried to fix it. It worked for a few days and then now it's broken again. So I don't know realistically how reliable this one is going to be, but I do want to show you our other spare fridge. These are spare fridges that we got from people who wanted to move and didn't want to bring their fridge with them, so we took it. And so right now these have my lilies, but I've been able to fit crates, like bulb crates in here. And when you do it right, you can fit, I estimate, at least like 2,000 bulbs in here, because if you jam a crate full of bulbs, like 700 bulbs, you can stack them and then you can stuff some on the side, like where the b.a.r.e is right now. If you stuff this full, you can actually stuff quite a few bulbs, but I'm ordering close to 8,000 bulbs. So I'm going to outgrow this, and that's why I need the chest freezer. So we're kind of going out of lily season right now, which is perfect because I should be getting the bulbs in early mid-November. I'll definitely be done by lilies then, and then I can use all the cooler space for the bulbs for tulips. But as of right now, we still get some lilies. This is actually for a CSA customer that is coming in about an hour to pick up. And I still have a last bunch of Lysianthus too. Before we get into the nuances of the winter tulips CSA, I do want to talk a little bit about the growing piece of it. So I gave you a high level tour of just what I'm doing. I've done some videos before, high level on growing. I did take the tulip workshop. It was a pretty hefty investment for a first year grower. At the time, I hadn't even bought this house yet, and we didn't even know if we were really going to be able to grow, but I invested in it because I understood that winter tulips could be popular and it would sell, and that has come to fruition. So I want to put a plug in. I'm not getting paid to say this, but it was a really, really great course. So tulip forcing is an advanced technique. It is not something that I feel like lilies, you can kind of putz your way through it and figure it out. There's a lot more leeway for tolerance in terms of not doing things the way that they should be, in terms of recommendations on like culture sheets and all that stuff. But with tulip forcing, there's more of a science behind it. There's more of a preciseness needed. There's range of temperatures you need to achieve between rooting and growing. There's spread of disease, that kind of stuff. So for all of those reasons, I would highly recommend that you check out the Tulip Workshop. They still have on-farm spots available. I think it's October 2nd. So that is in Waitsfield, Vermont. If you're in the Northeast, definitely worth going on farm for that piece of it. They show you how to grow in crates on that one, so in soil crates. But Linda from Little Farmhouse Flowers will also be there, and she does all of her tulips now hydroponically, and she will bring some of the trays to show you what they do, and she'll be able to answer any of those questions. The other benefit of joining the Tulip Workshop is that you get access to the Facebook group, which is a really, really great resource. So for example, someone this morning asked a question in terms of, hey, if I get my tulip bulbs at this date and I'm waiting a full month to plant, like, am I going to be okay? And Linda gave a really great detailed explanation. She goes, well, it kind of depends on how is your distributor getting the bulbs. Are they going to be pre-cooled? Are they not going to be pre-cooled? That will influence whether or not you can safely hold them and the risks with it. So always learning things, and that kind of information is invaluable because one, tulip bulbs are not cheap. So if you screw up, you know, you're obviously losing out on the cost that you spent on the tulip bulbs. And then the second piece is that you're also losing out on the opportunity to make revenue at a time when no one else has flowers. So if you're looking to grow at least, I would say 2,000 to 3,000 tulips in the winter, very, very worthwhile course to look at. I broke even last year between hydroponically forcing as well as my field grown tulips. I needed the revenue from the field grown tulips to break even on my bulbs, plus the course, plus some of the infrastructure like the mouse fortress and buying the trays and all that stuff. So this year I'm starting on an even playing field and I should be profitable. So you can put any questions in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. But from a growing perspective, that is really not my information to share. That is the Tulip Workshop's content. They've worked a lot on that content, and I want to make sure that they obviously get that credit and people are going to them for that kind of paid content. So on to my CSA. The Winter Tulips CSA is my biggest CSA. I just started doing CSAs this year. Last year was year one. I sold predominantly at a farmer's market every other week. It was a really great way to offload stems. It was a great way to get my name out, but it was also very it was very intensive in terms of effort. I felt like I was completely burnt out by August. In comparison, this year, I was like, I don't feel burned out at all, which is pretty incredible because I am still selling at a co-op. I get up at like 5 or 4:45 a.m. every single Wednesday. I drive about an hour to a co-op, then I drive another hour and a half up to work. I had a CSA, I had a newborn, and yet I don't feel as burnt out. So it kind of goes to tell you how much mental and physical energy is needed to do markets on a consistent basis. So I'm putting that into perspective because there are pros and cons to a CSA. The pro is obviously you have guaranteed demand. You get upfront cash flow. For me, that cash flow is very much needed. I'm gonna have to pay for bulbs. I'm gonna have to pay for a significant amount of ranunculus corms. I'm actually gonna be selling those ranunculus corms to those in the US for a reasonable wholesale price for that mid-sized grower. So stay tuned for that information later on. And then at the end of the day, it's a stress-free way of me knowing I have stems and those stems are committed. I don't have to figure out where they're gonna go last minute. The cons are that one, anything can fail, like in the world of growing, even when it's in a more controlled environment, disease happens. The bulbs may not arrive in good enough condition for me to be able to hydroponically force. Just random things that you don't know might happen. Even though I'm forcing inside, I am relying on the weather to cool to a certain temperature so that my garage can be in this certain range. I am relying on the fact that rodents are not going to eat my bulbs, right? So there's a lot of still uncertainty there. So one, you may not be able to have stems, and that's different than in the summer where if I had a CSA, I could buy from another grower. There's no one else to buy from it this time of year. And then the second piece is that I'm obviously recognizing all this revenue right now, which means in those months when I am selling those or I am growing those tulips, I'm not going to have revenue unless if I sell to someone else. So those are the pros and cons. Given all that, I have too many tulips that I'm growing to not have a CSA. So when I did the math, I ordered, I think about 8,500 tulips. Just to give you scale, that's my biggest crop. My second biggest crop was lilies. I grew 2,000. Everything else, at most, I grew maybe 150 of. Usually I grow in like 75 quantity increments. So that gives you a scale for just how big tulips are for me. Of that 8,000, I would not expect to be able to force all 8,000, just logistically and also from a bulb quality perspective. When you hydroponically force, the bulbs do need to be of a certain quality. So it's hard for me to anticipate how many total shares right now I will be able to fulfill. So when I launched my CSA, I only launched with, I think it was 20 spots with the intent of being able to open up more spots once I get those tulip bulbs sometime in mid-November. So all of that to say that then I did the math to say, okay, let's assume I'm going to do 10 stem bunches per bouquet. I structured my CSA to be every other week for 6 total bouquets. So that brings me from the beginning of January all the way to basically mid to late March. The reason why I did every other week is because tulips in the winter can last for more than a week. And I find that my customers like the every other week type of setup, especially from the summer and spring subscriptions. And it makes it a lot more appealing on the wallet. So the trade-off for me is that when you hydroponically force, there is more risk that you take on later in the season because you cannot guarantee that your bulbs are going to remain healthy in the sense that every week that passes by, you have a higher risk of the bulbs getting moldy, developing penicillium to the point where they're not going to be able to grow great stems and flowers. So there's that risk that you take on, but I feel confident enough in the experience that I had in year one to be able to, one, select bulbs that I think should make it for at least a couple of months in the fridge, and two, to mitigate that disease piece of it, which I got from the Tulip Workshop learnings. So now let's talk about my CSA setup and then the marketing piece of it. So the setup is I have 2 types of flower subscriptions. I call it flower subscription because it's a lot easier for most people to understand than CSA. It's the same exact thing. I have a pickup and I have a delivery one. For the delivery one, that is a more popular option because a lot of people just don't want to get out and drive. It's a $40 difference for 6 bouquets. So it's roughly about $6.67 extra per bouquet for that delivery option. And the reason why it works is because I am delivering to a general range. So all that adds up in terms of the delivery fees. I am likely going to hire a driver to do that. That delivery is going to happen on the morning of Saturdays, and I put very specific dates in the description in terms of when it will be delivered. Every other week then is my pickup, and my pickup will happen on Sunday between 9 and 1 p.m. I typically have more open time slots, but with the amount of shares that I want to sell, I want to make sure that I confine it because I don't want to be stuck in my house all day. And I just find that giving parameters makes people a lot more responsible in terms of showing up in a specific time. So a lot of people have opted actually for the pickup, more so than I thought. And I will cap the pickup. I'd rather do more deliveries because it's honestly a lot easier for me to hire a driver. And I'm thinking about paying them a base per hour rate of $15 on top of maybe the IRS rate per miles and then like a free bouquet. I'm still working on what that structure looks like, but I don't think it's going to be hard for me to find a driver on Saturday morning for that thing. So I'll update you guys later on what I decide. But so 2 CSAs or 2 flower subscriptions, 1 is pickup, 1 is delivery. And that means every single week I will have stems at least going somewhere. When I think about how many shares I want to sell at least 30 shares. So when you think about 30 shares, that's 6 bouquets, 180 times 10 stems per bouquet. That comes out to about 1,800 stems. So that's well under the 8,000 that I ordered. And I would be hoping to force at least about 4,000 of them. So I still have another like 2,000 in buffer. You put in Valentine's Day, you put in me selling to florists potentially, and we'll make up that difference. That means that I'll probably have at least, I would say, 2,000 out in the field. And I may be selling some pre-cooled bulbs and some non-pre-cooled bulbs to people like you in case if you're interested. But I'm still on the fence about that because I just haven't seen the bulbs. I think you guys have all heard that 2023 is slated to go down as one of the worst bulb production years. When I look at certain tulip suppliers like b.a.r.e, they still have quite a bit of inventory. I know that Ownings has a bit of inventory. b.a.r.e has a bit of inventory. So it's not something you should fret about. It's more relevant for people who want very, very specific varieties. They just might be out of that and you might need to accept substitutions. The other thing to note here is that certain varieties just got completely wiped out with crop failure and certain other varieties just didn't grow to that 12 plus bulb size. So what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a lot more of those smaller bulbs that are going to go to like the Brex, the Holland bulbs, like those type of retailers, and they sell it for dirt cheap on clearance. So if you're someone who is not forcing and you're someone who's just kind of like growing for fun, you're not growing huge quantities, you're definitely going to be able to get tulip bulbs. It's more for these bigger growers who are looking for specific varieties, specific quantities, and like, design work, that kind of stuff where we're going to have to be a little bit more flexible. But that being said, I've got the majority of my bulbs, 7,500 of them. The 5C chilled bulbs that I need for hydroponically forcing, they're coming from Little Farmhouse Flowers, which is one of the instructors of the Tulip workshop. They open up their sourcing only for students, and I am so far guaranteed to get at least 7,500 bulbs. So of the 15 varieties that I chose, 6 or 7 of them had to be completely subbed out. I accepted all those subs, and honestly, my customers aren't going to care. They're still all going to look awesome. All right, so let's talk more about how I'm selling the CSA in terms of platform. I am using Squarespace, my website platform. I just have gotten used to Squarespace. I'm a Shopify user typically for things that are e-commerce related, but Squarespace does the trick. So I have had my website up for a bit, and I just find it a lot easier when people check out online. They're paying for taxes here. From a trackability perspective for me, it's also really easy. So I have the 2 different options as 2 different products. I link to these 2 different products. They check out. It's 2023, right? And it's just, if you don't have a website, I would encourage you to make a website. But let's talk about how I got people first aware of my CSA and the leads that I've gotten. So one of the benefits of selling on Squarespace, whether it's a la carte bouquets or flower subscriptions, is that you get email addresses. So I've accumulated at least, I would say, 30 email addresses through Squarespace. The majority of my a la carte bouquets still happen through Facebook Messenger or Instagram direct messages. So I don't get those emails, but obviously I'm able to promote my CSA through my stories or through a Facebook post. That is still never as impactful in my view as email. So to the extent that you can get someone's email address, I would try to do it. Now, what I did was I gave my former CSA customers and a la carte purchasers via Squarespace first dibs. I gave them about a 12-hour lead time. Honestly, wasn't that much because I launched it at like 10 p.m. last night. But I got a few orders through there, and to give them a carrot, I gave them 10% off. I usually always give 10% off to people who have subscribed to my flower subscription before for the next one, just as a token appreciation for their loyalty. And then this morning I posted on both Facebook as well as my Instagram stories that my Tulip subscription was launched. And so far in the span of 12 hours, I've gotten 6 orders. Those 6 orders, not including tax, which is paid, but if you take out that tax piece of it, is $840. So I'm spending, I spent about $2,500 with the Tulip workshop bulbs, and then I spent another close to $800 with Netherland Bulb Company. So you add it up, that's about $3,300. $840 of that $3,300 is already paid for, which is really nice. And it's only been 12 hours. So there's going to be a certain point where the leads that I have from people who have cultivated have run out. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to post in my local moms group, and I'm going to be strategic about it because it's not about me running out right now to sell it. I think that is going to be a great gift for people. So I plan on posting it once in around like the Thanksgiving timeframe when people are in the mood to shop for Black Friday. And then I plan to post it again sometime in like early to mid-December. But that post is going to be, hey guys, I'm looking for a driver. And the reason why I'm timing it that way is because at that point, I'll have a better idea of how many delivery subscriptions I'll have. So potentially how long that driver is going to need to spend, how much money they can make per day of delivery, that kind of stuff. And then it will be another reminder, hey, I am selling subscriptions for anyone who is interested. Depending on how the November one does, I might do some Facebook advertising. I'm hoping I won't need to do it because as of right now, I'm already down. I'm already up to 6, right? So I feel like I could reasonably get to a dozen before November even comes around. There are a lot of people who have said to me, hey, like I saw the email, I didn't get a chance to fully read it, but I plan on signing up. So that's really positive. And of the 6 who signed up, 3 completely new customers who I've never had them buy from me. These are customers who found me through word of mouth or potentially through the farmer's market, and they just follow me on Instagram or Facebook, and they kind of just sit there until they're ready for something like a Tulip subscription or an a la carte bouquet. And that was like my biggest learning this year, which I kind of already knew, which is you need to be consistent in your advertising of your flowers. You need to consistently post. You need to consistently make people aware that you have flowers, because there will be a day where they want flowers. They're just not ready to buy right now, but one day they will be ready. Couple of housekeeping things before we wrap up. One, if you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me. I do a lot of stories, especially once tulip season starts, which really is whenever I get the bulbs. So I'd expect mid-November. There's a lot more day-to-day content on my Instagram stories than what I put on YouTube. The second is I do have a Patreon. That Patreon is a way to support me and making these videos. And in exchange, you get access to gated content that often accompanies YouTube videos or just one-off content. So one of the things that I really want to do this year is keep a lot better track of records. So that's turnaround time per variety. That is how many stems I get, how many stems I'm able to put into a straight bunch. I said earlier, I'm estimating 10. If it's a double variety, I'll probably do 8. If it's not, I'll probably do 10, right? But I'll post about all that stuff on my Patreon, and it is $5 a month. So here's the link if you are interested in supporting me there. But to wrap up this video, if you have been on the fence about winter tulips and taking the tulip workshop, I did do a video last year right after I visited Emily Von Trapp's farm in October. So here's the video link, and I'll link it below too. Same takeaway still. I still feel very positive about the workshop. But again, you have to be doing a certain volume. This is not a workshop for someone who is looking to do a few hundred, who is living in like a townhouse type of environment. Not that you're flower farming anyway, but in order to pay back that workshop, you obviously need a certain scale. And I think it's that like 3,000 range. I also did an interview with a fellow Tulip Workshop alumni. Her name is Haley from Bryn Hill Farms. So I'll link that below too and up here. She does primarily soil crate forced tulips. Her mom is a horticultural or has a horticultural background. So I think is a little bit more uneasy about the hydroponics piece, but it was really interesting seeing her side doing the soil crate forcing stuff. So also worth checking out if you're interested. But lots more to come on tulips. This is really the start of my season. I will potentially have flowers all 12 months of the year, not something I anticipated or set out doing, but this is now my go time. So I'm pretty pumped, and you're gonna see a lot more content on me with the tulips, the progress, the selling piece of it. So hopefully you'll stay and join me, and I will see you in the next video.